show. This is Nigel Olson, North Carolina Black Repertory Company Executive Director, and with me today is Perri Gaffney. She's not a stranger to the Black Rep or the festival. Perri, how are you today?
I am fabulous.
So tell us about the performances coming up that you're starring in now.
This is going to be the world premiere of a play by Angelica Sherry, and it's called The Sting of White Roses. It has two storylines going, very strong storylines. One is pertaining to breast cancer, and the other one is about love within the old folks community. I'm the old folks.
You're the old folks.
I'm half of the old folks.
So there's at least a scene, and we saw a little excerpt, a little taste of it at the Martastic Bash. And so there's a little something going on between you and one of these main characters that happened a long time ago.
That's right.
It's trying to resurrect itself. Can you give folk a little taste of what they might expect?
Just a little something, because there just is not enough Black love celebrated and shown and promoted I think, on stage or on film. You see us being, crackheads or crack dealers or, fighting against the law or fighting each other, and you see domestic abuse. You cover a lot of things, but Black love just is alive and well, and it needs to be celebrated.
Okay. So you can look forward to something that challenges you in terms of a disease. And Angelica sharing some of her story about her mother and growing up without her mother and this disease called breast cancer. And at the same time, there's love that sort of permeates or is a theme throughout the story.
That's right. There's always love. There's always life. There's always death.
Yeah.
Death is a part of life. But what you do with it in between, that's the magic.
Yeah, so what do you do in between the dash, right? So the dash in between the beginning and the end.
There you go.
So we are resurrecting what Larry Leon Hamlin started years ago, Living Room Theater. And it really is for kind of intimate audiences. It's not a lot of people in terms of the theater itself. It's taking it out into the community. And we're resurrecting it. And you are the first person who's going to go out and say, Living Room Theater is back. So you have a special one-woman performance, I understand.
I do.
The Resurrection of Alice. Tell us about that and what people can expect.
The Resurrection of Alice is inspired by a true story, actually many, many true stories. But a friend of mine told me about her mother, who was put into an arranged marriage. This is in the 1940s in the rural South. It happened to be Alabama. And her mother was the first person in her family to graduate from high school. And she got a full scholarship to go to college in the 1940s. And her parents told her she couldn't go to college. She had to marry this old man who had been the family benefactor, because that's why he had been the family benefactor. She did not know anything about this. But this is the 1940s, and you do what you're told. So she did marry him. She had 4 children from that union, and one of them was a friend of mine. She told me about her mother, and I thought that was incredibly egregious. And I told my aunt, who was 87 at the time, and she said, "Oh, baby, that happened all the time. Not just in the South, in the North, too." And I said, "Well, that's disgusting. It's like selling your kids." And she said, "No, it's more like the lottery." And I said, "Well, how is that?" She said, "Well, the reason they do it at all is because the family is having a hard situation. They don't see a way out. And they see this man over here, he doing all right, and he ain't married, and they just had a little baby girl. So they tell him, you can marry our baby girl when she becomes of age, but we need help right now." Because that is the difference between what African Americans did and what has continued for millennia throughout the world. Arranged marriages are not new. But in the African American community, you got the bride price years before there was a wedding. And that just does not happen in any other culture. And so, she was explaining, "Well, maybe we need a roof over our head now. My husband need a job right now. We hungry right now." And so he would take care of that family. And when that girl become of age, and of age was when you got your menses, when you got your period, because then you could have babies. That means you was a woman. So you could be 11, 12, 13. She said, but when you were grown, and that's when you were grown, then you had to marry him. I said, "Well, I don't see the lottery part." And she said, "Well, now that man, if the girl is that young, that man might see another woman, and he might marry her,
And the family ain't got to pay him back, but they got helped over that bad patch of time. Now, sometimes the man might die if he that old. Now, sometimes that man might lose his fortune. And if he ain't got no money when it's time for the wedding, even though he been paying all along, the wedding is off. Now, sometimes that girl will grow up and she will love him just like he loved her, and they would have got married anyway. But most of the time, it's like your friend, mama. And they call him Mr. So-and-so because that's who he was.
And she told me about 6 of her friends who had been put into arranged marriages in Cleveland, Ohio. This was just mind-blowing. This was a tradition. And she said that from the 1950s and before, it was real prevalent. But I have actually a friend in New York City who said they tried to put her in an arranged marriage around 68, 69 when she was a teenager. And she said no. Because it was 68, 69. We were burning our bras then. So she said no. And she literally had to run away from home in order to avoid that. And so she calls herself the Rebel Child Bride, and she goes around today. This is 2016. She goes around today whenever she hears about an arranged marriage that maybe there's some contention. She goes to let the girl know, you don't have to do that. This is 2016. So it is a tradition. That's what Resurrection is about. It was inspired by my friend's mother, but I never met her. So I was hoping it would be a biography, but it ends up being a novel because whatever I didn't know, I freely invented. Right. and it's a tribute to all those women and those girls who suffered that we don't even know about.
So now that your friend, has she seen it before, and how did she react or respond when she
has seen it? She was the first person when I started writing it. She was the first person I read the first 2.5 pages to. And she said, oh, that's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. And I have aunts and uncles that are alive that can tell. I said, I don't care what they say. That's their opinion. I said, your mother's story comes from your mother. And her mother had died. She had a massive heart attack when she was 58. And I didn't get a chance to meet her. So I said, I'm going to make up whatever, and it's inspired by your mother. And then she was the first one I gave a book to when it was finished and out of the presses. So she was the first one I gave a book to, and she read it. And she said, wow, I never thought to ask my mother. She said, you explained a lot of things, but that's through my interpretation. She said, I never thought to ask her. And she did know her mother was miserable after she was grown. She didn't know it coming up. And that was the thing that really impressed me. I said, how you live in a house with a woman, she's miserable every second of her married life. And you're there. And you don't know that? I wanted to know how she carried her misery with that kind of grace and poise that it left people clueless. And she said, it's gone now because...
That sounds like a part 2, the resurrection of Alice, and now her daughter. There's another story in there someplace.
Her story is extremely interesting, yes. But she'll have to bless it as a biography because I wouldn't take what I know of it and fictionalize it while she's still alive.
While she's still alive. So I appreciate you bringing that to life. So what would you like to tell those who are looking at this in terms of coming out, one, to see the world premiere of The Sting of White Roses, and to the 3 communities that we're taking, Living Room Theater and the Resurrection of Alice? We'll be going to United Metropolitan Missionary Baptist Church, to Arbor Acres, and to Senior Services Day. So what would you like to say to those listening about Living Room Theater and about The Sting of White Roses?
Black theater it's a privilege to work as an artist and to make a living as an artist. Even if you're struggling, if you're making that living, it's a privilege and pure pleasure. And it is done to educate and entertain and elevate and inspire. So you should come out and see both these productions and all the other productions that the North Carolina Black Rep does, because Larry Leon was truly, truly a visionary. And he created it here for you. So since you have that opportunity, you should come on out and take advantage of it. It's a sin not to take advantage of the opportunities that are all around you.
So you heard it from Perri Gaffney. She's here on holy ground in the office that Larry occupied at one point in time at the North Carolina Black Rep. Perri, thank you very much for taking a few moments.
Thank you.